And tell us what Seaside Sustainability is doing, because you are really ramping up some great stuff these days.
We are. So we have two divisions. We have Sustainable Oceans and Education.
Yeah.
In Sustainable Oceans, we're doing work in legislation, so on a lot of single-use plastics.
Yeah.
We just passed a couple of those, thanks to some really great help from Denise Donnelly from Rockport, and Leslie Whalen, and Ken Hecht, so some great people helping
This
that
is
out.
Gloucester City Council.
That's Gloucester and Rockport.
Yeah,
We're
Gloucester and
also
Rockport.
working Essex and Rockport,
Yeah.
about to do some Essex and Beverly. We have some education division, or some parts of that as well, where we have a field trip and lots of kids from essentially elementary through college coming out and experiencing our issue of microplastics and macroplastics on Cape Ann, which we have a lot of, which is kind of a bummer.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that, because microplastics, describe what microplastics are, and I'll ask you another question about plastics in the ocean.
So as plastics degrade, either photodegrade or they get into the ocean, or just in our environment, they break down. And
so say a straw ends up in the ocean.
Sure, it doesn't even have to end up in the ocean, but yeah, it can biodegrade.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently our science suggests that we are actually breathing it in right now, microplastics. So it biodegrades. Biodegradable is not necessarily the term that it used to be, but it degrades into smaller and smaller and smaller parts, and so we end up eating it. And the more plastics that's in our environment, the more macroplastics that break into microplastics. And so there's a problem. So we do actually a lot of trawls in and around Cape Ann. And the good thing is we don't have a lot of microplastics. The bad thing is we have a lot of macroplastics.
All right, what are you seeing out there? And how do plastics get into the waterways and especially into the ocean?
There's two parts, really, groups. There's consumer marine debris, and then there's fishing industry and that whole thing. And so there is a considerable amount of consumer debris that is coming from us. You guys are drinking out of that, and I'm right here. Yep. So we all have that choice of what we do with what we buy and what we consume. The unfortunate thing is that we put our things into a recycle bin that we think is maybe being recycled, and unfortunately it's not necessarily being recycled, especially if you have an open bin and wind comes along, that's just going right into the storm drains. In fact, around 90% of all storm drains in the country leads to the ocean, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's
so
incredible.
Over 90%.
That's an incredible stat.
Well, that's why cigarette butts, all that, that's #1 in the world for marine debris. So, all that cigarette butts, flick, and then, so.
Even if you're flicking it off in the car.
You're flipping it off in the car. And it
ends up in the ocean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ended up in the ocean. So
right.
All
Maureen, don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no more of that flicking, Maureen.
Thanks a lot, guys.
So macroplastics, we're actually working with a couple groups on mapping some macroplastics. We do a lot of cleanups. We actually have, with Cape Ann Maritime Partnership, we have 2 sea bins in Gloucester. We're testing those, so they're seem to be working really well.
Cool.
We have also a skimmer in Gloucester, down at Maritime Gloucester, so those seems to be working well enough as kind of like a test. So it's good.
And you're working on some issues locally that you're hoping reaches a federal level as well.
We are. Well, actually, in our other division, in our education division, we are about to launch. November 1st, we're launching what's called National STEM Honor Society, Science, Technology, Engineering, Math. Maureen was critical in the development of that 2 years ago. So it's been 2.5 years in the making.
Yes.
And it's infused with sustainability. So. We had this great idea of how do we get sustainability in schools across the country, and we came up with STEM. It's the best way to get it in because everyone's doing STEM.
Yeah, everybody's doing STEM.
Yeah, nobody's doing sustainability.
Nope, so we're just building it right in.
Yeah, well, no schools are.
Yeah.
So so it's kind of like getting into the back door of STEM. So that launches, it's kindergarten through college. It's actually our tagline's K to career. Pretty exciting.
That's exciting stuff.
Came up with that. And the other education
Note
program.
to self, patent.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember the day we came up with
Yes.
that. That was a good day.
Trademarked. It's all,
Really
everything's
awesome.
all good.
Yes,
Yeah.
awesome.
Everything is good, right?
Yeah.
And then the other education program we have is Green Scholars. So that is a project-based learning and sustainability for middle school, high school. It's in lots of local schools. We've trained over 550 people to do it nationally. And then goal for 2021 is to put it on a website, so it's like a video-based. So I don't have to drive around, fly around to do these trainings.
Right,
I can,
right.
you know, so.
Yeah, do them on the video.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask Eric too is like you get interns from the world over.
We do.
How
Yeah,
does
this is
that-
impressive,
Yeah.
Eric. This is so impressive.
We have
Everybody wants interns, right? You're the master at getting interns.
Well, I think it has to do with my my past as being a teacher in project-based learning. But we have accredited internships in 780 colleges and universities around the world.
Oh, wow.
Which means those students can get credits for having an internship with us. Essentially, we are maintaining about 50 interns, local and virtual, at any given time. Last summer, we had 64. We had 34 that were here. So they're actually coming here to live here and to stay here and do an internship with us. So
It's great.
So
And your Instagram feed is great and shows
I have
these
nothing
profiles.
to do with that. I have nothing to do with
It's
any
great.
I
on
know
social
he
media.
has nothing to do with that. That's why I brought up the interns.
Nothing to do
The
with it.
interns are really good at that Instagram feed.
And I don't think I'm on it. I hope I'm not on it. I try to avoid
Maybe I've seen you a couple of
maybe
times.
like the backside of me,
Yeah.
but not.
So it's so key that you're doing this work here on Cape Ann because climate change is local, right? We all know climate change is local. So, and you're doing this work with young people, as Mike Cavallo just brought up, he's getting back into mentoring.
Mike rocks.
And you've been doing this for so long, working with young people. It's also this great place to infuse inspiration.
Yeah.
I saw your folks at the Climate March last Friday.
Yeah.
They were right in front of me. I'm like, hey, Seaside Sustainability. Hey, way
Actually,
to
it's
go.
funny. I just saw a video of them, and I said, "Hey, that's Maureen in the background." Did they did you meet her? And they're like, "No." Did you?
You're not true. Are you
Oh.
serious?
Well, one of them did not know that you were. So sorry.
Oh.
It was one of them. You
No,
did
I
not
was-
say hi to one of them, apparently.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Sorry.
no, it's all right, it's all right, good.
But we saw each other.
Yes,
we were there
yes,
marching for the
yes.
climate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah.
What
Great.
specific things are being worked on right now through Seaside?
We're working on some more blue tech. We just got an underwater drone that unfortunately doesn't pick up plastics, but it identifies them and has a 100-meter tether. It doesn't go where Michael can go, but it can go pretty deep, Michael.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, Michael. Maybe Michael can bring it and bring it down there. 100 meters, so that's pretty good. And
Yeah,
then we
that's cool.
are about to get a surface drone that will, it's called a bluefin, that essentially it's a autonomous drone that goes around. It's like a harbor Roomba. And, I don't think it's actually going to make a huge difference in the plastics or floating marine debris, but I think it will be a really great educational tool.
Gotcha.
So, and then the launch of NSTEM is imminent, and that's pretty much consuming
Yeah.
my daily.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's so great to
Thanks,
have you
guys.
on.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Eric.
People
Corey,
want to
good
learn
see you.
more
Nice to
about
see you.
Seaside Sustainability, seasidasustainability.org.
Or they can go on social media, which I don't even know.
Seaside.
Yeah, check out their Instagram
Seaside
account.
Yeah,
You won't
yeah.
see Eric, but
Yes.
you'll see everything else.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks
Good to
for
see you.
NSTEM.
Sure.
Thanks, Eric.
Eric, great news about Seaside Sustainability based in